Welcome, this is Joan Michelson from Green Connections. We're here at the Verge San Francisco 2013 conference in beautiful downtown San Francisco. I'm here with Jennifer Leigh, who is a specialist in leading innovation, an innovation specialist, I guess you might say, particularly around the issue of communication, which is, anyone who knows me knows is near and dear to my heart. Welcome to Green Connections.
Thank you.
Jennifer, tell me about, we're here at a conference on driving innovative change around particularly sustainability issues. And we're dealing with cities, we're dealing with big companies, we're dealing with big institutions, and then we have entrepreneurs as well. But we need these big institutions and big companies to innovate also. We can't depend upon them always acquiring startups, right? I've worked in big companies, I know what that culture is like. How do we do this? How do we innovate in a big company?
Well, if you start with the basics that a company has decided it wants to be innovative as opposed to just buying up other people's innovation, then in my humble opinion, it has to start with relationships. You have to train the managers and everyone in that corporation to learn how to communicate in a way that keeps the brain flowing and creative so that relationships they feel safe and solid and secure so people can start being more creative. If people aren't in respectful relationships, a part of their brain fires up more frequently that actually kills innovation and creativity dead on the spot.
Wow, so it's actually neurological.
Absolutely.
So expand on that a little bit. So the brain actually, when you don't feel, I know we all know the fight or flight syndrome,
Sure.
But when you don't feel safe, including in a professional setting, how does the brain know what safe is?
Well, everybody's going to have their own set point for safe, but there are some global safety things like respect and not bullying and not making fun of people. And I know they sound so basic, like we should all understand that, but those things go on all the time.
Well, but they're
in
also different, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
I mean, I know people who, when I've said, excuse me, but I find that offensive, they've said, well, I'm just kidding. Or
Right.
they say, really? Or, like putting it on me.
Right. Well, a good rule of thumb is what social neuroscientists call the big brain question. And all of our brains are hardwired to filter in people's communication and behavior through a question: am I safe, secure, and respected? And if
Unconsciously.
Yes. So if you feel that, then your prefrontal cortex in your brain can work more optimally, and your limbic system, the fight, flight, freeze area, is going to stay calm. And yes, people can say that's just my communication style, but I think we all have some degree of intuitive knowledge of what's kind and considerate and puts us, in the field of being trustworthy people.
How do we deal with we live in a global world, and we have people, here we are in California, I live in Washington, D.C., we have people from all over the world working with us. Isn't there a cultural difference in the definition of safe and these communication issues?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
I truly believe that every human being has the same needs and wants and desires: to be heard, to be seen, to be understood, to be respected. And maybe that respect comes in different ways, that you could say is a cultural difference. But I think in some deep down intrinsic way, we kind of all know what that is, what it looks like.
It's about what happens in the room.
Yes.
When you're talking about a big company, there are so many external drivers. I mean, it's also safe in my job, and
Right.
it's safe in with my boss, and it's safe with my colleagues so that I feel included, and they continue to include me on projects that can help my career and that are also interesting. So it's really pretty complicated. I mean, if I'm in a big company and I've done this and I raise an unusual idea, sometimes I go, oh God, or been there, done that. And sometimes I just turned around and said, maybe tell me about the time when you did that, because what I'm thinking is I'm going to execute on it differently. And maybe, I find out, oh, well, that was 5 years ago or 7 years ago, and I just look at them and say, don't you think the environment's kind of different now? and we're a different team now, so we can innovate differently now. Is there a difference between incremental innovation and disruptive innovation in this communication dynamic?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before, and I probably need a minute to think about that. Because the disruptive innovation is wonderful and juicy and so creative. But again, I think it does need to be approached from a respectful manner if you're going to get people to buy into it.
Well, incremental innovation is something that is probably safer to do in a corporate environment or a big company, big institution environment. It's less threatening to the colleagues around you, and we need both right now. So I'm thinking, like the Chevy Volt, we've had the Chevy Volt here as a test drive. In some ways, in my view, it's really, it's not disruptive, it's really incremental. Mm-hmm. It's flipping the engines, is really what it's about. Almost everything else is the same. So if you're somebody in a big company who wants to encourage creativity in your team, give us the top 3 things that they should do, briefly.
Definitely learn considerate communication. Learn a little bit about the brain. You just need the basic facts, but it's really helpful if people understand how their brain is functioning and how other people's brains are functioning. So you can influence the other person's brain in a positive way. And the other thing is to play. And I know you only said 3, but I have to tuck in the 4th one because 80% of the brain's neurons are dedicated to movement. So if you want to be creative, it's really vital that you get up and move. That's why I'm really focusing on creating innovation gardens for the companies that want to be innovative so that the people can come out and play and move their body and do the gardening and have this place where their brain goes back to homeostasis, their whole neurophysiology calms down so they can be more innovative. So those were 4 things.
I love that. And as a movement person, a dancer, an exercise person, I absolutely love that. And that is a much longer conversation. So thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer Leigh, for joining us on Green Connections. This is Joan Michelson from Verge in San Francisco 2013. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.